to tell you a bit about the O.W.L.S study, which explored the effects of the pandemic and the pandemic restrictions on people with severe mental ill health. My name's Emily, and I'm here today with my colleagues Gordon and Paul. So we've got 3 questions that we're going to answer. So the first question is, what are the major mental health lessons we've learned from the pandemic? So from our study, we learned that in terms of their mental health, some people experienced a deterioration during the pandemic, some people found their mental health was better, and some people found it was better and then worse. There was no one size fits all, but what we did observe was that people who experienced a deterioration in their mental health, there seemed to be some association between people also experiencing a deterioration in their physical health. So those 2 factors seem to be linked. I'll just pass you over to Gordon for some further thoughts.
Yeah, I think we know there was lots of inequality around before the pandemic, and the pandemic was very much worse than that. So impacts have to some extent depended on people's starting position before the pandemic. We also know that one of the key effects of the restrictions that we were all forced to live under is that lots of the things people did to keep themselves well were no longer available, so they couldn't always go out and socialise or take parts in groups, and that had a major impact on mental health for an awful lot of people.
Thanks. And so now to our next question, which is, what will be the long-term effects of the pandemic on mental health? So I'll pass over to Paul to just tell us a bit about the loneliness work that we did.
Yeah. So one thing that we looked at in particular was loneliness, and we found it was a substantial problem. So about 1 in 3 people reported being lonely, and that was really strongly associated with a deterioration in people's mental health. And we also found that people who were younger and who were living alone were at the most risk. So we think it's really important to follow up loneliness and to continue looking at these trends as they continue.
Thanks, and pass over to Gordon for any thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot we still don't know about what the long-term impact is going to be, and so many people have been through so much grief, so much change over the last couple of years. We know that's likely to have a major impact on their mental health for many years to come. So I think it's not going to be a case of the pandemic's over and everything goes back to life as it was before. The other thing I think that we've still to see are the sort of economic after effects of the pandemic. So there's an awful lot of money being paid out by government that we know needs to pay back. There is a fear, I think, that will lead to cuts and economic circumstances that make life more difficult for a lot of people, and we know that economic difficulties always go hand in hand with worsened mental health. So I think there's a lot we still need to see.
Thanks. And now the final question is, how can we as researchers be better prepared for future pandemics or large-scale crises? So one thing that we noticed when we looked at our results was people who didn't experience a worsening in terms of their mental health were people who were able to maintain a daily routine. So there seems to be something around being able to maintain a daily routine that offered a protective factor. So whether it be a national crisis like the pandemic or a personal crisis, there seems to be some link between ability to maintain a daily routine and this protective factor. And finally, I'll just pass over to Gordon for any thoughts.
I think one thing we managed to do very successfully in O.W.L.S was to maintain a very high level of engagement with people with lived experience through the pandemic period. And I think we were able to do that because we had good engagement beforehand. And by working with people with lived experience, we were able to transfer the methods to online, to phone, to other ways to replace the sort of face-to-face engagement we've had. So I think engagement in research has always been important. If anything, it became even more important through the pandemic period and will continue to be afterwards. So I think that the lesson for researchers is to have those good engagement mechanisms in place throughout, so that if anything like this ever does happen again, you're in a good position.
Thank you, and thanks for listening to our little interview.